the calculation for you then is about a general election victory for the Conservatives, a lot of people will say, well, that's Boris Johnson who can deliver that.
Well, I have no idea whether Boris Johnson can deliver it. I personally have serious doubts about Boris Johnson's capacity to be Prime Minister.
Do you think he's unfit for that job?
Yes, I do. I think that I'm afraid he's shown, particularly during his period as Foreign Secretary, that he doesn't have the necessary skills and capacity. He has many undoubted skills and indeed elements of genius, but I'm afraid that his record in that respect doesn't suggest to me that he's the solution to the problem.
Would you leave the party if he became leader?
I'd have to consider my position very carefully because I would find it very difficult to accept his leadership.
How many others are in that position, do you think, from your conversation?
I've no idea. You'd have to ask them.
Already the leadership campaign is underway. We know she's going, May ends in June, or we think it's in June, or maybe it ends in July. The first candidate to declare he's running for the leadership is somebody you know very well, Boris Johnson, and he's doing incredibly well in the polls.
Well, I was just listening to you a moment ago, Andrew, saying you can't take polls seriously. And then I listened to a gentleman from Australia,
yes,
pointing out that the polls have been entirely responsible for the upturn of events in Australia. No, I think whichever. By the way, I am 100% behind Boris's candidacy. I mean, the idea that you can afford not to have a man who has, or a person who has, 2 terms experience of being Mayor of London, plus being, holder of one of the great offices of state, that you can't have him as a serious candidate would seem to me to be a ludicrous thought. I think there's a real chance that somebody of his character and his ability to grasp the issues, could go forward. I'm in favour of that.
In terms of party management, Stanley, is it better for the party because, just to remind listeners, the leadership contest rules are such that the MPs choose a shortlist of 2, which is then decided on by the party membership in the country. There's about 150,000 members. Should there be 2 Brexiteers on that shortlist to ensure it is a Brexiteer who becomes Prime Minister, Brexiteer and a Remainer?
Well, that's a very interesting question. That is honestly up to the parliamentarians to work out that shortlist. They will, they will. I don't think you could get an amendment to the party rules at this point, saying there has to be a Brexiteer on one hand, a Remainer on the other.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because you are a prominent Remainer.
My position has been that I wanted Britain to remain. I was one of the people who voted to remain in 2016, and by the way, I've worked hard for that because I've been in here talking about environmentalist Europe. When Britain did vote in 2016, I said, fine, that's the way Britain voted. Let's see what can be delivered in terms of Brexit. But honestly, when Mrs May came forward with the so-called Chequers Agreement, I just had to say to myself, this is worse. This is not delivering on Brexit. And frankly, either of the other options, either staying in or getting out, were better than the Chequers deal. And that's where I stood.
Responses now of Boris Johnson becoming PM?
Well, that's the big question. The question which Boris himself has asked to himself ever since he was 5 years old. When he was 5, he said to his sister, Rachel Johnson, his younger sister, that what he wanted to be in life was to be world king. He thought there was a position where you were king of the world. And he's prepared reluctantly to substitute being the Prime Minister of Britain for his lifelong ambition to be world king. I remember when I was making the film about him some years ago, The Irresistible Rise of Boris Johnson, and he was being coy about his ambitions. And I kept on saying to him, but would you like to be Prime Minister? He said, oh, very difficult job, very, very difficult job being a Prime Minister, very difficult job. But would you like to be? He said, well, if the ball were to come loose at the back of the scrum, it would be great to have a go at it.
Do you think that puts people off, though? I mean, it's widely known now that he has this ambition. A lot of people think he's mainly interested in his own career, and yet he still seems popular with the public.
Well, it's a different kind of popularity from what he had 3 years ago at the time of the referendum, until he actually kind of decided that he was going to be a leaver. And remember, and again, a film I made, I talked to him about it. He'd written 2 articles for the Daily Telegraph, draft articles, for which he's paid £250,000 a year. I think it's now up to £275,000 a year for one article a week. It's quite good money, as well as being an MP. But he couldn't make up his mind which side he was going to be on. Was he going to be a Remainer or a Leaver? And I think he made the calculation that if he went for the Leave campaign, and then even if the result of the referendum was that we remained in, he would be the leader of the Leavers. And he knew that Conservative members in the country and many Conservative voters in the country were Leavers. So when there was a leadership campaign, in whatever circumstances, this would be his entree into the leadership election campaign as the leader of the Leavers. But I've never been 100% convinced that he is a Leaver at heart, but I think he thought this was the strategic place to put himself. And now, of course, with the as far as the result of the referendum is concerned, with the vote to leave, then he is, unlike, say, Theresa May, who voted Remain. The Leavers all see him, as a true Brexiter, and so he could be, in terms of the views of the members in the country, he could be the right person to try and start again and negotiate a deal which they think is a true Brexit deal.
Do you think Boris, too, is the only candidate, they're not declared yet, all of them, of course, but the most likely Tory candidate to stop in its tracks the rise of Nigel Farage's Brexit party?
You have absolutely put your finger on it. I think it's really, really vital that at this moment the Tories, as I said to you before, don't abandon the field as we apparently have done on the European elections. It is absolutely vital that the big, strong, right-centrist party, which the Conservative Party has usually been, reasserts itself. And don't forget, we've got, I think it's another 2 years before the next election. And actually, this moment is about 3 years. But come the beginning of the next year, it'll be 2 and a bit years, because that's 2022. Well, there's a huge job to do, and I think we need a very solid, strong Conservative Party to do that.
Boris Johnson being the favourite to become Prime Minister. You, I think, worked with Boris Johnson when he was Mayor of London as his Chief of Staff. As someone that's worked closely with him, has he got the temperament to be Prime Minister at this time?
No.
He would be unfit for office?
No, I don't think he's the right person to be Prime Minister. I don't think he's the right person to be in a cabinet. I mean, he's got many merits, many talents. He's a likeable chap. But he does not have the qualities that we need in a Prime Minister at any time, let alone at a time of national crisis.
What are his insufficiencies?
Hello?
What are the problems that he has with his temperament or with his ability to do the job that you think render him unfit?
I don't think that he's got committed beliefs. I don't believe that he has shown a record of commitment to a set of clear beliefs that he's stuck with through thick and thin. I don't believe that he is capable of making difficult, serious decisions under great pressure. I don't believe that he is organised. I don't believe that he has the discipline that you require in a Prime Minister. We're not electing, a court jester. We are electing the Prime Minister of this country at a time of unparalleled challenge through this Brexit negotiation. And I do believe that he's a fantastic campaigner. He brings joy to lots of people and, a wry smile to many faces. But he's not somebody who should be in number 10 Downing Street dealing with the most difficult questions of the age.
So who do you want?
Well, I'm left the Conservative Party. I'm frankly not sure if any Conservative, or certainly not any of the candidates that I currently know about, is right to lead the country at this time. But it's certainly not one of the people who are currently most favoured.
This is a ruling from District Judge Margot Coleman in Westminster Magistrates Court today after a private prosecution has been brought against the former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. Of course, he is a leadership runner to take over from Theresa May, that Boris Johnson should face a court to answer accusations of misconduct in public office for comments made in the run-up to the 2016 EU referendum. And the accusation is relating to that famous bus with the promise that £350 million a week can be recouped from Brussels to pay for the NHS. Lawyers have accused, this was a crowd-funded private prosecution, have accused Mr Johnson of lying to voters when he made that claim. It's been brought by a barrister called Marcus Ball, who's accused him of abusing public trust, and he earlier told the court that democracy demands responsible and honest leadership from those in public office. That was a comment actually made by Lewis Power QC to the court at an earlier hearing. Now, relating to this figure, the £350 million a week to the NHS is the gross figure that the UK sent to Brussels. And of course, on the back of that, we had a rebate from the European Union. So the actual figure was 166 million. Now, Boris Johnson...
166 is the net.
Is the net figure after the rebate from the European Union. Now, Boris Johnson, when he made these claims, talked about taking back control of £350 million, i.e. that we don't send the entirety of that chunk of money to the European Union every year. He was quite clever in the use of his words, but of course he is going to have to answer these accusations to a court.
But wouldn't he just answer in that way and say it was fair comment?
Well, the district judge just ruled today that actually there are grounds for this private prosecution and that Mr Johnson should answer these accusations in the courtroom itself.
Yeah. Do you think, Theo, that that just provides... when is this hearing, by the way? Do you know?
We don't know. The date hasn't been set as yet. This is a breaking news story, but as soon as we have the date, I'm sure we can update.
Do you think that will just provide him with another platform with which to espouse his views on Brexit? In
the court, I think we can expect Boris Johnson supporters to say that this is another case, and we don't have been in touch. I've tried to be in touch with haven't yet had an answer from Boris Johnson's people, but I think we can expect Boris Johnson's supporters to say, as this story develops throughout today, that this is another example of the establishment trying to stop their man becoming Prime Minister. And actually he was justified in making the claim, because he didn't talk about the amount of money that was being the amount of money in terms of the 350 million just being given over to Brussels. He was talking about taking back control of that money, and of course if we're given the rebate, it is not necessarily for the UK to decide exactly how that money is spent, and that was the point that Boris Johnson made during the campaign itself.